If there's one player in the world in the year 2025 who's grown his confidence by leaps and bounds, it's Javokhir Sindarov, who's on the right of your screen taking on Magnus Carlsen. He's the winner of the World Cup. He's reached the candidates. He beat Magnus as well at the freestyle chess in South Africa. You know, this guy is on fire, and impossible is not a word in his dictionary. We're going to follow this game, but this, dear friends, is the ChessBase mobile app recap of the day. Magnus opens the game with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. We have the Italian on the board. Bishop comes out to c5. White castles. And Sindarov plays his pawn to d6, delaying the development of his knight on g8. c3 played with the idea of pushing forward with d4. Sindarov gets his bishop back. These small nuances often in the Italian can mean many different things. And Javokhir is waiting for Magnus to commit something before he can bring his knight out to f6. Pawn to d3, and he plays h6 so as to prevent bishop g5 ideas. And I think black has perhaps gotten the setup that he wanted, and next move can bring his knight out to f6. You can see Magnus being slightly perplexed by Javokhir Sindarov's choice. He's taking his time. a4, a5 is not yet possible. The square is well controlled, and so you can bring your knight out, and that's what Sindarov does. Knight to f6. A move like b4 to gain space can be met with a5. So he brings his knight to d2, developing his knight. And now black castles. And Magnus. Now, maybe he can go rook e1, h3, a very typical move. Rook e1 makes space for the knight to come to f1 to g3. You have maybe b4. These are all the possible moves in the position. He goes pawn to h3, stopping the bishop from coming to g4. And Sindarov now goes pawn to a5, equalizing the space on the queen side. He brings his rook to e1. Magnus playing this very steadily. Javokhir plays bishop e6. He's like, Magnus, if you want to take, and then the f file opens up. But Magnus has ideas of knight c4 and queen b3, putting pressure here and on the queen side. So perhaps taking this might not be such a bad idea. On e6, look at the times on the clock. Magnus down to 1 minute 30 seconds. Sindarov has 2 minutes 26 seconds. He's taken a lot of time here, Magnus. He goes bishop b5. He's putting pressure here. He may want to go knight to c4 next. But knight a7 attacks the bishop. And now it's Sindarov's time to think a bit. There's also knight e7 to g6 to transfer the knight here. I think black's position looks comfortable here, but he goes knight a7 and Magnus comes back. Knight c6, bishop b5, and Magnus says, no draw, I want to fight on. And that's logical because now take, and there's this very interesting move, queen e8, attacking the b5 pawn. He does take, and ab5 is on the board. 1 minute 28 seconds for Magnus, 1 minute 40 seconds for Sindarov, and counting down. He plays his rook to e8. The pawn on e5. He's ready to give it up. So take, knight takes. Is that a good idea? You can see the rook staring across. There's bishop takes pawn. If you take here rook e5, black would be more than happy. But then knight c4, attacking the bishop, defending the knight. The queens looking at each other. It's quite a complex position, this rook e8. And Magnus has to decide whether he wants to push forward with d5 take here. Because d5 bishop d7 is something that black would be very happy with, this structure. So, and Magnus is going for it. He's down to 45 seconds. This game somehow, he's not flowing. He's taking too much time. He's down to 38 seconds. He takes on e5, takes here. He just wants to be sure that taking this pawn is not a bad move. He's down to 30 seconds now. Takes, bishop h3 on the board, and knight c4 has been played. Queen takes queen, rook takes, and the bishop comes back to e6. At this point, Magnus is a pawn up. If you count the pawns, no, actually it's equal number of pawns. He's not a pawn up anymore, but he does feel that he has a small edge considering that these pawns are a bit weak. Bishop b3 played. Attacking the knight here. The bishop comes to f4. And something like knight h5 will be met with bishop h2 because the bishop can control the knight. And Sindarov, with almost an extra minute on the clock, is trying to calculate some sort of tactics here. Knight e4, rook e4 and f6. Because this pin, the knight cannot move. And the bishop on b3 is also pretty safe. He takes it. Sindarov is so confident. He's executing these tactics without really losing time. Rook e4, f6 played. The rook comes to e1. And it's opposite colored bishops, so it could be that the players would shake hands very soon. But on the other hand, you can see that the black king side is a bit weak. Rook g4 with the idea of putting pressure on g7. Not an impossible task, and it could be something interesting to watch out for. 40 seconds for Javokhir, 23 for Magnus. Sindarov tries to zone in. He brings his bishop back. And rook comes back to e3. The rook wants to swing over. Bishop c4. He takes the pawn. Rook e7 played. Now the g7 pawn is under a lot of pressure. So although Sindarov is a pawn up, his b6 pawn is under pressure, his g7 pawn is under pressure, and now he's also below on the clock. King f8 takes the rook, and these are the positions I would be seriously afraid of when facing Magnus. He's so good. Rook takes, rook b7, equalizing the number of pawns, but now b6 is hanging, bishop g7 and h6, g5. And Sindarov has just 6 seconds left on the clock. He goes bishop c6. Pretty sure that very few players in the world can hold this position against Magnus Carlsen, the maestro of endgames. b3 played. And now king comes up to f7. He goes rook a6, bishop d5. Lovely move. If you take on a5, I'll take on b3. Check. Rook back. Takes the pawn. Bishop b3. He also takes the pawn. King h2. Still an extra pawn here for Magnus. Check. Rook back. You don't want to trade rooks. A rook trade would mean a draw. Bishop comes to c4. bd3, and Magnus is thinking about trying to push the pawn. And he gets it rolling. Bishop e4. And now pawn to c5. h5, Sindarov trying to push his king side pawns and create some play. h4 played. And you can see the c6 pawn has been well blockaded by both his pieces. g4 on the board. Who is Sindarov going to somehow put so much pressure on Magnus? He finds g3. Wow. Giving up another pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Takes with a check. Takes here. Rook g6 found. And now there's a pin here. Bishop takes g2 hanging. You can see many top players turning their attention to this game. Sindarov somehow managing to hold on there, exchanging all the kingside pawns. Bishop c6, king comes to f5. Bishop b5, Magnus brings his king in. Oh, his king almost flies, but this time he was able to catch it. King c4. He's going the other way with his king here. Rook f6. Is there a way there though? Bishop comes and defends the pawn. King goes to a5. This is looking really dangerous for Sindarov. He goes backwards. Bishop comes to g3, threatening a check to win the bishop, but Sindarov blocks it. King b6, check. King c7. He comes in with a check, and now rook moves to the 7th rank here. Rook g7. He gives another check. Bishop c6. The speed at which Sindarov is playing is so insane. 10 seconds on the clock. And rook h3. King comes in. And actually it's black who's now very solid on the light squares. And this cannot be winning now for white. Sindarov just has to be very careful here. The king comes back to a6, trying to threaten a check here. And Magnus brings his bishop here, threatening again a check. Bishop blocks. Rook b2. Bishop d5 comes in. King b6 played. And now rook attacks the bishop. The bishop comes up. And rook e3 with the idea of rook b3 check. He goes rook b4. But now it's a rook trade and a draw is agreed. What a game here by both the players. And Sindarov instantly tells Magnus that in this position, after bishop b5, a b5, he should have played queen d7, because d5 there is bishop h3. This is the variation that they spoke about. Magnus was like, whew, I'm tired after this game. And a great defense by Javokhir Sindarov, not letting Magnus Carlsen win in this better position was simply epic. All these years, ChessBase was a software that needed to be installed on your computer. But now, ChessBase has come up with a mobile app. It's called the ChessBase mobile app, and it is available both on Android and iPhone. With the app, you can now prepare against an opponent. You can get access to more than 11 million games in your database. You can create a new game, analyze it. The premium users get access to the fastest cloud engines, and then you can save your analysis. What's more is that the app is completely free. If you want to stay connected to serious chess preparation on the go, then the ChessBase mobile app is for you.